Welcome, everyone, to Emplifi Customer Connect 2025. I'm Mike King, the Senior Director of Campaigns here at Emplifi, and joining me today is our partner, Allyson Downey, the CEO of Stellar. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's great to be here. As Mike mentioned, I'm the CEO and founder of Stellar. We help brands get their earliest reviews on new product launches. And we also conduct a lot of our own proprietary research, and that's what today is based on, some proprietary research that we fielded recently about consumer behavior.
Yeah, I hope everybody's really curious because today we are going to be sharing a little three-play guide for you about turning social engagement into real sales. And it starts kind of with the right mindset. Molly Fletcher mentioned that in our keynote earlier today, how success is built on a growth-oriented mindset. So when we're in this fast-paced digital landscape that we're all in today, understanding that consumer behavior, especially on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, it's really essential. And Allyson, you've got some great numbers to look at.
Yeah, exactly, Mike. Adaptability is the new currency. We have seen these numbers shift considerably as we fielded this research longitudinally. So maintaining that growth mindset and that curiosity, so important. So our research shows that 57% of consumers have purchased from a brand that they'd never heard of after discovering it on social media. And that's why curiosity is key, not just to keep up with emerging trends like the TikTok shop, but to continually ask the right questions and gather real-time insights about what drives purchasing decisions.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider when you think about today's storefront. It's not just, going down the street anymore just to purchase something from the store. There's different places you can go. And from every stage of that customer journey, from the initial awareness of finding out about your brand to then going out and advocating for you, it's really influenced about how authentically you're engaged with them as well. And that's that going back to that mindset about overcoming those barriers. What was the data showing there about what consumers are doing when it turned coming to finding that inspiration to take action?
Yeah, absolutely. So our data shows us that while many consumers find products through social media, they still seek validation through reviews and trusted brand sites. So they're looking for extra assurance after they've initially discovered something. So two-thirds of consumers have been influenced to buy a product they initially discovered on TikTok or Instagram. However, the conversion to purchase is still infrequent for most. Only a small fraction are frequent purchasers.
Are there things that we can do to increase that a lot faster? I mean, seems like, two-thirds is a pretty good option to get into, but then that other third out there, what do we need to do to convert them?
It really comes down to trust. And our belief is that authenticity is what underpins trust.
Absolutely. Great segue into our first play, which is all about authenticity, because authenticity wins. And I think those findings, so they highlight that buyers do trust genuine reviews and user-generated content, sometimes a little bit more even than those polished influencer posts. I love this quote that came out of your research. I'll read the whole thing here. I'm sometimes weary of purchasing products reviewed by TikTok influencers because I know their content's sponsored. But at the same time, I like watching reviews from real users who don't have a huge following because it feels a lot more honest. I know I'm one of those too, who I'm always searching and looking for, okay, what the actual reviews say, like what's the most recent reviews, which ones have been kind of go. I really dive deep into this stuff to find it. But
Yeah, and what does a person like me think? What does a person like me, not someone who is living this aspirational influencer life?
absolutely. So what's next with this? Should we ditch influencers?
Absolutely not. You should not ditch influencers altogether. Healthy brands use a combination of influencer reach for initial discovery and then user-generated content to drive deeper engagement and validation. So it's a scale piece as well. And you can think of it this way. Influencers get you on the radar, but authentic reviews and UGC really seal the deal.
Mm, mm. I like the data point you had too. Yeah.
Yeah, so with this data point, it shows that TikTok users are far more likely to discover products by randomly scrolling than Instagram users. So on TikTok, follower count matters less. So you should focus on relatable, genuine content. On Instagram, leverage your influencers. They're getting into the feeds of more people, but ensure they're driving consumers to also find authentic reviews too.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I don't really mean to actually go out and ditch influencers. I think they are still great for discovery. Sometimes they're that extra voice that you need to really help amplify that message, but then you still need those real relatable voices that are coming from the customers who are actually finally purchasing those products to seal the deal. And I know here at Emplifi, we're often encouraging, to do a mix of the strategies of both. Find those micro influencers, those everyday content creators who are naturally going to leave a review showing, them wearing your brand new shoes, or, the new food that they're trying from the store. That they're going to post that naturally on different places for you. And that gives you a chance to amplify that, to bring more authenticity to the table.
Yeah. And the ones who are creating really good quality content, that's driving the most engagement. And it's worth investing in that regardless of their follower count size, if you're also doing the other things that underpin conversion.
And when you're doing it well, it takes you kind of into play number 2 here, which is all about harnessing the power of all those reviews. They can leave them in so many different places, but we were just kind of talking about what we both do to go find out products. And this number to me is huge, but reviews, it clearly are the number one thing that consumers are still looking for before they go make that purchase.
Yeah, this number is staggering. More than 80% of consumers want to read reviews before purchasing a product that they've discovered on social media. And it's twice as important as any other factor.
Some of these other things on here, just looking through this list, you see detailed product descriptions, product comparisons, best of list. I think of things that we're often asked of to provide as well, but they don't seem to rise to that same level of importance. It's literally just that authenticity factor that those people really need.
It's just trusting that it's another individual who is like them, who's experienced the product and isn't affiliated with the brand. And the other thing too with reviews is it's also kind of a numbers game, that you get to see a scale of opinions. And seeing repeated over and over again from different participants and different reviewers, the same themes can make all the difference in the world to driving trust around those product features and benefits.
So we knew to have the reviews, but what is bringing people to actually read those reviews? I thought these numbers were really also fascinating as well, of why they're going to find out about what people are reviewing about the products.
Yeah, so reviews help shoppers build consideration sets. They help them translate product features into tangible benefits, and they help them validate their purchase decisions. In fact, it's not uncommon to see a 40% increase in conversion rates with as few as 25 reviews. This was from another study that we had put out in the field, and found that people were 40% more likely to purchase a product once it had 25 reviews. And our belief there is that people want to see a critical mass of people have tried a product and they don't all hate it.
Yeah, I want to look at that number too at the very bottom as well, that 10% or less number, who are wanting input from their friends or family. Why do you think that number is as low as it is compared to they just have that initial need there at the top?
So, if someone's discovering something on social media, they're less likely to take it offline and go to their friends and family about it. If they're looking for a recommendation for a product in a particular category, yes, of course, they go to their friends and family. But when we're thinking about the path to purchase after discovering a totally new product on social media, the easiest, least friction task for them to undertake next is to just search for product reviews, and they're at their fingertips in seconds, and it's just easy for them to find that social proof from a pool of people that are not in their own social circle but still give them that sense of validation.
Yeah, so we know you got to have the reviews. It's important. How do you get all those reviews? And there's some great strategies that I think everybody should be trying. First off, it's obviously incentives and product sampling and streamlining those review submissions, having clear user flows. Some of the things here, when you're doing inbox submissions, making sure you're also looking at other areas that you can collect reviews. Maybe that's at the checkout. We offer checkout comments, for instance, to get that last little chance for them to give the positive review before the product's even shipped to them. Looking at ways to put reviews even outside of online, QR codes in platform, in your stores. There's some great use cases of this where you've got maybe a new shirt that you've just launched and it's in the store, and you can have a little QR code right there in the tag. Hey, leave this review, and maybe get a 15% discount there at checkout for doing so. And using sort of different processes to go through. And that last little bullet point there, the the do more, add something to have somebody do more. If they're already leaving a review, is there a way that you can get them to maybe leave one more review someplace else, or do one little extra comment there at the very end? Just tiny little tactical strategies that you can put into place that really can drive a huge difference here. Another big one, obviously, is review seeding. And I think that's something, Allyson, you guys do very, very well with.
Thank you. Yeah, so at Stellar, we help brands get their earliest reviews on new product launches, solving the chicken and egg problem that brands face, that nobody wants to buy a product that doesn't have reviews, but until people have bought the product, there's no one to review it. And I know some of the companies listening in today already have a robust review seeding strategy in place, but for those who don't, review seeding is the industry standard process of sending potential customers samples of your products in exchange for their honest feedback in the form of a rating and review. And it's called seeding because you're just planting those initial seeds to help drive those purchase numbers up far enough in the beginning that you can collect that organic content later. So it's a one-time investment, usually at product launch, that helps pay dividends going forward because it's going to encourage other consumers to write reviews. We see post-program conversion increases of up to 90%. So that 25 reviews drives a 40% increase in conversion is what we've seen kind of across the board. But for some of our clients that we work with, it goes as high as 90. And that can happen with as few as 50 reviews. And we really believe it is the most high impact action a brand can take to drive sell-through. And it's something that every brand should be considering doing to get those new products rolling right at launch date.
And as you're then now working to get all these reviews, there's still one last little play to do. And that's about frictionless purchase. You've collected all these things. Now we have to make it easy for them to make the final purchase. And Allyson, you also collected a lot of great data about where some of those final purchase destinations end up.
Yeah. So adoption of the TikTok shop has been massive, with 61% of people buying directly on the platform. We fielded this study a few different times asking about purchase behavior, 18 months apart. And that TikTok shop number went from 0 to 61% in just over a year. On Instagram, though, users are turning to direct links. But Amazon and brand websites are still the major players. So oftentimes people will see a product and then they'll go Google it and figure out where they can purchase it.
You had mentioned at the very beginning about trust being a huge factor of this. And again, really hitting that point home here.
Yeah. So, 61% have purchased from the TikTok shop, which means that 39% still haven't. And some people simply just won't buy on social. 36% don't trust making purchases through the app, and they instead prefer reputable sources like branded retailer sites where they already have trust established. Now, I think it's possible for that trust to continue to build and grow over time with TikTok Shop, with buying directly through social. But for now, having diversity and diversification and where you're driving people to purchase is a smart and helpful strategy.
Absolutely. And speaking of strategies, there are some strategies that you should really be thinking about to help accelerate this. And Allyson, please jump in, in any point here that you think that there's a great start to. But first off, starting with optimized ratings and reviews. I mean, we've been talking about that a little bit too, but first, you should be checking for sufficient reviews. Sometimes when you've got a lot of products and your catalog is getting larger and larger, it can get a little difficult to stay on top of that. So not only having the software solution in place to make sure you're able to track where the right reviews are, if you have the right balance for products, is it aligned with what you're about to ship out this summer, et cetera. But then, making sure that you're doing things either with review seeding or incentives or some other activities to start funneling those reviews into those areas.
There's a regular audit, I would say, is really important. And we do this a lot with our shared Stellar and Emplifi clients that will look with them across their product catalog to see not just products that don't have very many reviews, but any products that are lagging below a 4.0. Because those are ones where you want to do a deeper dive and understand better. In other research we fielded, 99% of people said that their most recent purchase had at least 4 stars. So there's a big mental gap for consumers once a product has dropped below 4 stars, and that's somewhere to put attention as well.
Exactly. And I like this next point too, is prioritizing recent reviews. I think a lot of shoppers are really savvy now. most review tools out there allow you to sort by recent or different sort of activities. And as marketers, I know I want to make sure that the best review possible that we've ever had is going to be front and center, because we want everybody to love the product just as much as we love the products. The reality is people are going to go look for those most recent ones. And if you're not doing that first step of making sure you've got the right things and doing those audits, you want to make sure that that second one's really important. It's going to be difficult to sell a product if your most recent review was 3-4 years ago, versus if it's a newer review and they're still positive and they're in that 4-star range like you're talking about, really, really helping yourself moving forward.
Yeah.
And then obviously the next part of this is then, making sure you're using this in marketing. And that goes both to this first word play and the second one, utilizing UGC with reviews. You can collect visual reviews, it's things that are coming in from customers sharing, pictures of the product. They're sharing it out there on social, making sure you're collecting that information and using that, feeding that over to your marketing campaigns team so they understand, hey, okay, these things are really getting shared a lot. Maybe there's a common theme here that we can now turn into a wider campaign that's going to help us support the objective that we're trying to do this summer.
And we saw that in other research we've conducted, that when a product has photos with the reviews, people are 24% more likely to choose that product. So UGC is so critically important. It helps people understand how that product might fit into their lives. It might fit on their body, how it might fit on their kitchen counter, and really encouraging people to upload a photo when they are submitting a review is key.
And we talked a little bit about kind of the influencers, micro influencers a little bit, when we're helping many of the brands that we work with user-generated content, ratings, and reviews, we're able to bring that information in and start kind of almost a mini CRM. And engineers might get mad at me for saying that, but essentially you're able to say, okay, we have this person who's commonly posting with us and sharing these activities with us. They're a micro influencer that we can now really use. And then, oh, look, they like these other type of influencers that are paid influencers that we can now use to kind of help amplify that voice. And so slowly but surely that can help snowball into something very, very large for your campaigns, just by paying attention to those little tiny bits. That's really important. Kind of number three here, enhancing that social strategy. When you're able to use that stuff effectively, you're creating anticipation, you're creating these real moments among customers, you're creating that authenticity, and then a little bit behind the scenes content even mixed in, some of that starts creating some of that, those extra trust layers that's going to really help different consumers navigate to your brands as you move forward. And the last part too, elevating your customer support teams. There's a lot of things that are coming in from reviews. It's not always just, oh, we have a negative review, that's got to go to customer support, but think about the positive things that are coming in as well. When they're having those great experiences there, are there great 4-star, 5-star reviews that may help push somebody over the finish line there at the checkout line? Are there other activities that you could be saying when somebody comes in, hey, I have a problem with this, but you had these other reviews that maybe you have already solved that they can quickly reference in that customer service standpoint to help answer that question a lot faster. And sometimes even be able to provide that self-service directly there on the review platform where they're searching initially. So some of the initial things that you could do to start with. And Alice, I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to add here.
I just think really ensuring that you're highlighting the content that your customers are contributing, whether it's on social, whether it is reviews, really, really using that to help drive trust for your product overall. Photo carousels are a great way to do that too.
So as we start wrapping up a little bit, Allison, are there any just great stories, recent customers that you could think of that are really doing some of these things very well are great to highlight out there to the world?
So we have a broad stable of shared clients with Emplifi, and it gives us a really impactful window because we're able to see some of the analytics on the Emplifi side while also working with our brand clients. And there's a Fortune 100 brand that we work with that has been able to accelerate their reviews on key retailers, Staples, a client of Emplifi. And with review seeding, they saw a 60% increase in conversion over the months following running a campaign with us. So the investment that they made paid back these massive dividends with that 60% lift in conversion.
Oh, that's fantastic. So bullet points to kind of remember as we wrap up today. First, when you going after that excellence in social commerce, you've got to embrace that growth mindset. You need to stay relentless curious. That the data like this that you can collect, things that Allison has shared today from Stellar, That's the curiosity. That's some of those data points that you really need. And then making sure at the very end of it, you're always putting the customer at the center of your strategy. It's got to be real and authentic for them to trust your brand moving forward. You do that by optimizing those ratings and reviews, harnessing that genuine content, and then continuously refining that social strategy. So I hope everybody enjoyed today's session. We look forward to connecting with you further. And Allyson, one last time, I want them to go stop by the partner booth and check out Stellar today. Anything that they should get excited about before they go?
Yeah, please do. And then our URL is stellarreviews.com, and you can reach us by email at partners@stellarreviews.com. Going back to Michael's point about curiosity, this research that we fielded for this study came from questions that our brand clients were curious about, and they brought them to us, and then we fielded that study. So we welcome hearing from brands about what their burning questions are, because it helps inform the research that we're putting out there in the world and fielding.
Yeah, I appreciate that. This session's a little bit shorter than what we had for some other ones. So I would encourage you, think about what are the questions that you have? What are you curious about that you would like to know? Drop those in the chat window here. We will be looking at those, and maybe that's going to spark another research campaign that we can put together and share it with everyone. So please share those thoughts. Thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of Emplifi Customer Connect 2025.